Welcome, my friends, to the Black Diamond for September 19th, 2016. It's Monday, and it's time for us to get together on our weekly Black Diamond call. So, quick announcement before we get the show on the road is that we've got our Marketing Mastery event happening 31 days and a few hours from now. Yes, we are down to counting the hours until we're all getting together live in sunny Las Vegas for our first ever Digital Altitude Marketing Mastery event. That is happening on October 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. And today is the last day for you to get early bird pricing on the Sherpa tickets. If you were looking for a VIP ticket, those are sold out, so out of luck there. But the Sherpa tickets, you get them at half price right now. And if you're a new Rise member, you're actually getting that money reimbursed to you when you show up in Vegas. So just go ahead and grab your Sherpa tickets now. Do it now. Do not hesitate. Do it now. Get a couple. Get some for new members. Get some for people that are about to get started and they didn't even hear about this yet, but you're going to go sign them up after this call. Get some tickets, get them at the early bird pricing, and meet me there in 31 days. That is our one and only announcement for tonight. The other thing I have to tell you is our weekly disclaimers. As we get this call started, as you guys know who've been here for the last few weeks, this call is very raw. It's very street. Sometimes it's in your face. We just talk about whatever we want on the Black Diamond call with no agenda. Hopefully it's instructive. That's our intention. Myself and my guest speaker, my guest host each week, we like to give you things that are very usable. These are ideas for action, right? So we'd like for you to take action, see how these ideas that you learn about on these calls, especially the Black Diamond, see how these ideas apply into your life and into your business. And since we are pretty raw here, the rules are take what you like and leave the rest. And if I say anything that offends you, you'll get over it. That's the rules. Because once again, none of this is scripted. We just do what we know how to do. That being said, tonight I'm bringing out a guy who I've known for 15 years. That's right, my friends. We're going back to the days when, you know, the cavemen walked the earth. And, you know, direct sales was like this idea that, you know, some people were kicking around in the late 90s. And then, you know, I showed up in 2002. And one of the people that I met was this guy who I thought was kind of a clown. He is kind of a funny guy. And I remember he was one of the people who was already making $50,000 a month when I showed up in this industry all those years ago. So he was actually one of my first mentors. And for those of you, like if I'm your senior coach and we're going through the scale-up steps, then you know that I've talked about, and that's obviously not most of you on this line, okay? But for those of you who do know, I've talked about, you know, when I first got started in this industry, one of the things that I was taught to do was to go seek out other top earners and ask them questions like, hey, man, what are you doing? And so that's what I did. So I actually traveled to different meetings. You see, we used to do live meetings in hotels, and we would come out and, you know, once a week we'd go to the place and we would see whoever's presenting that week, talk about the opportunity, and, you know, we'd have live guests in the room. Sometimes we'd have a few people. Sometimes it would be standing room only. And this is how we used to build our business. Now, of course, to get people in the room, we would do local advertising. Things like really high-tech stuff, by the way. We would put flyers on cars in parking lots. We would get chased out of the shopping malls by the security guards. It, you know, made them feel really important to chase us out of their parking lots as we were putting little papers on people's cars. And what else did we do? We placed newspaper ads. I don't know if all of our listeners know what a newspaper is, but that's a paper thing that now people experience for the most part online. But we would place newspaper ads. And at one point, I was flying around the country a couple of times a week doing these live meetings after doing a week's worth of local advertising in some local area, like Newark, New Jersey, where I grew up in New Jersey, right? So I'd fly over there. Then I'd fly back to Arizona, where I lived in Tucson, and do a meeting there. And then I'd head up to Phoenix and do a meeting. And while in Phoenix, I get to hang around with this guy, Dave, who I'm about to bring out here. And I'll never forget it. I certainly don't want to steal any thunder here, Dave, but I just have to tell a story. It's one of the most memorable, I'm going to tell two stories. Two of the most memorable things you ever told me. And then we're gonna launch into whatever this topic turns into being, okay? We never know what's going to happen until we hear it come out of our mouths. But two of the things that I learned from Dave in the very, very early days. By the way, Dave is also a senior coach here. So for all of our new RISE members, when you go through your scale-up steps, you may be assigned to me, you may be assigned to this guy Dave, and either way, you're going to have a blast, I think. But this guy Dave taught me a couple things. Number one is when I was going around meeting these top earners and asking them, hey, what do you do? This guy Dave had a very short answer for me. He said, just expect it and keep showing up. And I was like, oh, Dave, that's so profound, man. Thank you. Just expect it and keep showing up. And you know what? That's quite instructive, by the way. That's very instructive. So don't just glaze over. And of course, here I was a newbie, and this guy Dave's making $50,000 a month. It's like every word that comes out of his mouth, you got to hang on every word. So that was one of the things he told me. And one of the other things he told me, which interestingly, Dave, just came out of my mouth in an interview that I was doing just hours ago, where we were talking about building team culture within the home-based business arena. And, and one of the things that I was talking about was operating your business as if you've already got like thousands of people in it. And that was a reminder you gave me, because I remember when I was coming up in the ranks, okay, now I wasn't so new. I was making, I don't know, $30,000 a month or whatever. But, I had some people on my team, and nobody was making that level of money yet. And I just wanted to make sure that I was giving the maximum service that I could possibly give. And I remember asking you, is there something I should be putting my attention on here? I don't want to neglect, any training I should be doing or whatever. And you said to me, you know what, John, how are you going to manage your team when you got 5,000 people on it? Are you gonna like hold everybody's hand and like we're gonna sing Kumbaya or something? I was like, well, no, I'm not gonna have time. He said, well, you're never gonna have 5,000 people on your team if you don't start behaving like you've got that now. So it's be, do, and have, right? So it was a beautiful reminder, and yet another way to apply the be, do, have principle. And so, Dave, all I could say is thank you. Let me start this conversation with a thank you to my friend, and soon to be your friend, if you've never met this guy, Mr. Dave Kosack out of Minnesota. Dave, how are you tonight?
John, I'm doing great. You're taking me way back memory lane, and I shot you over that picture that was on my in my office, and that picture's so cheesy. And when I look back on it, standing on the armrest out the sunroof with my arms out, my Camelback Mountain in the background, and I was driving down to see you that night, and we were heading down to the VIOD Center, which we did in Phoenix, Arizona, with every Thursday night. That's where you'd find us. And we were at the VIOD Corporate Center, taking it back old school. We thought we were pretty cool. We didn't do the Holiday Inn, but we did a corporate center, and we were basically in this 20-story building, and we were in the basement. And I remember first meeting John, and John was intense. Like, if you guys would have seen John back then, he was the serious guy that was analyzing everything. He was the blueprint. He wanted to know, like, how does this work, ratios. Well, because John, your background, what you told me back then, you were very specific, in working for that company you worked for, selling precision instruments. I get it. I totally get it. And I was just kind of like the opposite. I mean, just so you guys know, I got started at age 17 in the industry, and they wouldn't let me in, but I was at a new skin meeting, but they let me come down because my dad was a chiropractor, so they thought, well, maybe we can get to his dad, because, maybe he'll like it. But they wouldn't let me in, but I started reading the books at 17, signed up in my first company at 18, and I just turned 43 a couple months ago. So this is all I've ever done, and I like to say I've seen most everything out there, the good, the bad, and the very, very crazy. So, but John, this is a guy that, he's looking at me. I was looking at him as a mentor. I'm like, hey, I'm doing pretty good, and I don't know what the heck I'm doing. But this guy is, like, serious. He's, like, intense. And, John, it didn't take you long at all to start just crushing numbers. You just, like, absolutely crushing numbers to the point where about a year later, I remember we were coming back from Fiji, and John's just like, people are like, what is he doing? Like, this guy is doing huge numbers. Then the next thing you know, it's like, who just got that new Bentley? What? I used to be the cool guy. I had the new cars. I had the new 7 Series. And then John was always like, it was trying to keep up with the Joneses. Hard to do. I thought maybe if I got a trampoline in my living room, I could beat him, have some parties there. But John, you were hard to beat. And you're still hard to beat. And you are so fun to work with because you have a way of just taking a brand new person and showing them this actually works. You know, you and your amazing wife Shannon have taught me so much over the years, and it's been an absolute pleasure to just go down the journey with you.
Well, thank you, brother. And you know what? You just brought me back to trampolines in the living room. And by the way, folks, when Dave says he had a trampoline in his living room, that was like the entirety of the living room was this trampoline. It took up the whole damn room. And I remember that one guy, I won't mention any names, but one guy jumped off of like the banister of the trampoline, just about broke his neck.
I was 28 years old at the time, and I didn't really understand how insurance works, you know, when someone gets injured in your home. But there was a guy, and he was a little bit heavy, and we had about 22-foot ceilings, and he decided to get up on that upper ledge that was about maybe 12 feet, 14 feet up there where you put plants, and he decided to jump into the trampoline, and it bottomed out, and that was a little scary for a few minutes until he caught his breath. But yeah, we're a very professional group, and we do some serious training here.
Well, you know what? We're going to Vegas in a month, Dave. So I suspect that there's going to be fun there as well. I know we're going to be off strip, thank goodness, but
Yeah.
There's going to be fun nonetheless. And the thing is that I think a lot of people, you mentioned how intense I was, and I'm still intense in terms of my ability to focus, but I think then I was not as fun because I was just so desperate to get out of the job to start living the lifestyle that I saw other people in the home business world living, including yourself, right? Yeah, you were one of those guys who had sort of arrived, you know. And I remember there was another guy, Steve, and he had the income record, right? And these are the people that I modeled, and you know. But you kind of prided yourself on, like you said, being the non-intense guy. You were like all happy to you know, claim that you were lazy or something. And I didn't know if you were really lazy, but you know, it was different.
Well, no, I really was. I mean, let's just be honest here. I mean, this is a very honest company, and let's just tell the truth. The founder used to even put it in the materials, like the worksheet when you get started. He would tell you, you know, you got to do this and work hard, and then I think it actually said, unless you're Dave Kosack. And I mean, I thought that was kind of funny. Looking back on it, I had some older mentors say, you know, Dave, that's not that good to have, but you know. It was, at the time, it was working for me, and here's what I learned, guys, is that John came in there, and he was checking everybody out, and he was going, what are they doing? What's this Steve guy doing? You know, this is when the company is like a baby, and it's like, back then, 15 years ago, to make 6 figures in a month was like pretty impressive. You know, now it's like, I don't think most people realize how lucky you have it with this model here with Digital Altitude. It's completely different than when you're placing newspaper ads and hoping that they're going to show up to the Thursday night meeting that's way out of their way. That could be 45 minutes to an hour away from where they live, and you're hoping they're going to make it in traffic and get there in time, and then if you meet them, and, you know, remember all that stuff, John? I mean, we had so many obstacles back then that it's like a different planet, what we used to do.
Yeah.
And when John talks about those little flyers, he's not kidding. I mean, we were doing things like that because back then, the internet, it was like dial-up, and then it was like, okay, tiny bit faster here and there. And then there's this thing like, I remember hearing about, I hired a consultant, and he taught me about overture. I'm like, what is that? Remember the word overture? It's so long ago. And it's just like, wow. So here we are, you know, getting ready for 2017, getting ready for all of this. I mean, look at what this company is doing in a matter of less than a half a year. It's remarkable compared to what we did, because we were like a boutique operation. And then we got some traction, and then look at, like, click over into 2004, and then 2006, Jeremy Miner comes on board, starts to make some systems that are just like incredible. And you start seeing some incomes where I remember seeing leaderboards. Remember the leaderboard where we would see somebody making like $85,000 for the week? And it was crazy. And John, what would you say would happen if we had a time machine and if we could use this technology back then?
I'll tell you what would happen. It would probably be to the point where we would have, well, you know what, it's just to speculate, I would say we'd probably all be retired, right? I mean, if I think about but I also have to temper it with this, Dave, is that we all had to mature a bit too, right? I don't know that our goals are to put, trampolines in our living room anymore. So we had to sober up, so to speak, right?
Yep.
Because I think that money makes you more of what you already are, right?
Yep.
So, and we've seen people get reckless with money too, right? It could be dangerous. So, yeah, I don't know. I'd like to think that we would have been responsible, but in my case, I was overcompensating to a large degree for having grown up in poverty, right? So when it came time, you remember, here I was. In fact, it was in the Viad corporate tower in the basement in Phoenix, Arizona, where I held up my new Lexus keys. Remember that?
Dude, I remember that like it was yesterday. I was going to actually
Yeah.
bring that up because I remember you set that as a goal, and you brought down that shiny new Lexus, and you were so happy and so proud, and it was beautiful. Remember, people would come into the garage, and it was like one of those structures that has like 5 or 6 levels, and people would sit in there and smell the leather and turn on that, amazing sound system, and they went to feel the wood, and it was just like, it was so cool because you could tell those people like, hey, I did this in 4 months or however fast you did
3
it.
months.
And people, it got real. It becomes real when they see that happen. And that's the one thing I do miss about the live meetings, but we have them. I mean, we got Vegas next month. So it's exciting to still have that element of being real and being able to meet people in person. So, yeah, John, I totally remember that.
Yeah, it was a big moment for me. Now, here's the thing, Dave. As coaches, because we both are, what we want, and I'll speak for myself, what I want is to give people every possible advantage so they can reach their goals hopefully faster than I reached mine, right? So we just talked a little bit about our history, Dave and myself. Here we are back in the Stone Age. John shows up. He's all stressed out. He's intense. He wants to make 20 grand a month and buy a new Lexus, and he does in 3 months. And knowing what I know now, I could have done it faster. Okay, cool. Can we go faster, not just with the experience that we have, but with the systems and the technology and the things, progress has happened. And now we got this guy, what's his name? Forrest, right? And he put this whole DA thing together. None of this existed. There are so many advantages that people have that I don't know if the new person, like let's focus on the new person, Dave, because I believe, and I've said this for years, I know you've heard me say this, is that the new person is the most important person in the company. They are the future. Okay? Yes. I'm like the old hag or something, right? But the new person, right? That's the most important person. So here's somebody who's wondering, is it possible for me to make multiple 6 figures, maybe even 7 figures? Let's just tone it right down. Can I make 20 grand a month like this guy Lavinia and get myself a decent ride? Yes, you can. What are the steps and what are the advantages people have? And this conversation can go in any direction, but that's what I'm thinking. What would be the most valuable stuff for the guy who or the girl who just signed up and like a couple hours ago?
Well, I'm going to take it back to the things that I learned from my mentors before I ever really made any serious money. The principles were always there. It's just you've got to actually put them in place. So when I was in MLM, the things that just really, in my opinion, are not the best choice. They just they take a tremendous amount of energy for, I think, a fairly small return. But the principles were, hey, you got to keep showing up. You don't quit. Keep learning, keep showing up to the meetings and all that stuff. And you would see some people have a little bit of traction by doing that. I still think it's one of the hardest ways possible to make money. It's good for to meet new people, I guess, but it's just one of the most difficult ways to make any type of significant income. And I actually have to use the word luck. And I think some people actually get a little bit lucky by finding that guy or that girl that actually runs for it and does that. And when we learned, high tier and all of this, that whole word luck kind of went away because you can write your own ticket. You just have to decide what you want to do here. And then when you incorporate leverage into it, all of a sudden you can get some breathing room and you can go, wow, I just had my first 5-figure month. And after you have that a couple of times, your mentor can say, hey, why can't you make $30,000 a month? And you'll say, well, those guys do it, but that's not for me. I'm not lucky or whatever. And then you realize you can do it. And John, I don't know where you maxed that out, but you went deep into the 7 figures. And I know that when I first met you, if I would have told you you could do that, you probably would have said, dude, you are such a clown. Seriously. I enjoy hanging out with you, but come on. 7 figures, really? It just, until you did it, now when you look back on it, was it really that hard?
No, I'd say the hardest part was getting out of my own way, mentally, psychologically, emotionally.
Yeah.
But what you just said was a very important distinction, and that is that as opposed to standard issue MLM, low ticket, consumables, stuff like that, we've got a leveraged opportunity. We've got a leveraged comp plan where you really can write your own ticket, where you're getting, and you can get, the lion's share of the money right up front, as opposed to, one of the things that, and I'm not here to poo-poo other business models or say, MLM is crap, but when we compare the two, I could say, well, one method is everybody does a little bit, and hopefully everybody does a little bit, right? You see, 2 get 2, and then they get 2, and then everything, and then, we're all going to be billionaires, and we're just hoping that everybody does a little bit, and then we can win big, right? Or there's the self-reliant approach of top-tier direct sales, which is obviously what you and I have opted for and have for years and years and years. And that is where, I'm quite able, I'm quite motivated. I don't know what the next guy is going to do. I know what I'm going to do. Okay, please give me an opportunity to go do that. And that's what this is about. And leverage is, and, duplication's nice, okay, but it's not like what the whole business is based on, like in traditional, like MLM. Which, Dave, I did that for a couple of years, full time. And my best year, I made $12,000 in MLM. Again, not to disparage, standard MLM, but 2.5 years working full time, made 12 grand my best year. My best month in home business now is 200,000 in a month. So let's say 12,000 in a year or 200,000 in a month. A little bit different.
So guys, once again, John had to brag, and he had to 7-up me. He had to, show off a little bit more than I've done because I've never done.
No. Hold on a second. Well, I'm sure you've done better, Dave.
No. Actually, John, I really don't think I have. As a company owner, I did, but not as a marketer. But as a marketer, I still got John. I think I have you beat for the one day. Now, guys, this is what's important. We're going to go to Vegas in a month, and things are going to happen that are magical in Vegas. So John and I were at an event, wasn't quite as glamorous as Vegas. It was Scottsdale, and it was a 3-star hotel. But we still, we went there, and remember we had a Super Saturday, John? Remember that one?
And there were so many of them, yeah.
Well, this is one of the first ones. I think it was the first one you showed up in your Lexus.
Okay.
And some people had the light bulb moment, and they got it. So in a matter of about, it took about an hour and a half when we actually really talked about the big picture of the company. We're talking about the leverage of the compensation plan. I made $47,000 in an hour and a half. And that blew my mind at age 28. I was like, wow. And so those meetings, like when you guys talk about Vegas and you really understand what's going to happen, we had an inferior compensation plan. We had absolutely zero monthly residual income. I mean, John, could you imagine if we had hiker, climber, and walker residual monthly memberships?
No, we had nothing like that. It was gun to your head, 0.0 beginning of every single month. Eat what you kill. That's it. That was the plan.
Absolutely different. I mean, we would actually, if we had that where, if you had a slower month, you still had a nice marketing budget. This is just so incredibly amazing compared to what we worked with. And we still, we didn't know any better, so we were super happy. And, we were living our life, and, that's how it was in 2001, 2002. But looking at this here, sometimes I think we don't talk enough about the significance of building a team and having a team of, committed people, at the climber level. That's some serious residual income, absolutely serious. And I think, I think we should talk about that more, because that can be massive. I mean, it is massive for some people, but I mean, I think if more people just realized what that meant, you guys would be able to, maybe adjust your goals a little bit, set them up a little higher.
Well, Dave, I'm not a math guy, and I don't know if do you consider yourself a math guy?
John, you can answer that for me.
Okay, so no. And so neither of us are math guys, and yet we sort of marvel at these, these numbers that we've been able to experience in our time here in this industry. And so the way that I've gotten to the big numbers has not been so much focusing on the numbers, but focusing on the purpose. And this is something, Dave, that I think, even for non-math people like me and you, that we can look at. I remember hearing a speech or reading the transcript of the speech. It's one that I've taught before because it's just so profound. It's a speech by Albert E.N. Gray that he gave to the Prudential Insurance Corporation, where he was some big shot back in the 1950s. And of course, the most famous part of that speech was, the title of the speech was The Common Denominator of Success, where he gave what he believed was the common denominator of success for all people who had ever been successful, ever. And if you don't know what that common denominator is, tune in next week and maybe we'll talk about that. But he went on after giving the secret, you see, and he talked about how if you sales managers here in this room, you guys are experiencing a slump, you see, don't try and force production, okay, and don't try and create competition amongst your people. What you want to do is you want to get people refocused on their purpose. Purpose will yield production. Why are we here, folks? Right? We're here to put insurance in the hands of millions of Americans, or whatever, right? So related to your business now. You're not in Prudential if you're listening to this. Maybe you are. I don't know. But here, as it relates to our businesses with DA, why are we here? Why are we doing this? The production is a byproduct of being focused on your purpose, whether we understand the math or not. So, Dave, that was my approach to it. And when I think about how does that relate to our continuity program, the Aspire model, all this machinery that Michael and Jeremy and Jason and Dallas and these guys have put together. Okay, how does that relate to our purpose? Well, I talk about this with our students. I see that Michael has prepared so many different ways for us to be able to earn money as affiliates. So you've got the core products themselves, the Ascension model, Base, Rise, Ascend, Peak, Apex. Nice. You've got the sort of the ring around the mountain, right? So if you look at the Ascension model as the core products like a mountain, well, around the mountain is the baseline trail that never ends. It goes around and around and around, and that is Aspire, right? And there's several levels of participation there. Then, of course, you got the incentive program, right? Dave, when we started this call, mentioned the BMW, the picture of him standing on his BMW armrest or something, and in front of Camelback Mountain. That was a breakthrough for him. Would you like a BMW? You can have a BMW, right? Here's the car allowance program. Then we've got the contests, right, which is friendly, fun competition. And here's the Maserati. Here's cash and fabulous prizes. And all that is here for everyone. One thing I will say, Dave, as it relates to all the things that I just mentioned, is that we obviously have a very plugged in and very generous principal at the head of this company. And I haven't had too much opportunity to spend much time one-on-one with Michael. We had lunch this week. He was in Salt Lake. And of course, we're getting together in Vegas. But I can tell you as an observer, and what you and I have seen throughout our evolution in this industry, is that people like this are rare. Opportunities like this are rare. The magnitude of this is pretty huge. And I think if new people could get that, again, I'm going right back to purpose. I don't mean to sidestep your whole climber conversation, but I'm going right back to why does climber even exist. I'm looking at the purpose behind DA. Everybody here wants you to win. If you're brand new in this business, everybody here wants you to win. The deck is stacked in your favor. Can't do it for you. But we can give you every possible advantage to reach for it. And so, we like Dave said, we've seen the good, the bad, and the very interesting. This is like catching lightning in a bottle. This is a very rare opportunity, and we're so new. Dave, I showed up in that first company where you and I met. The company was a year old. We're not even a year old here. Yeah, it's a bit over a year putting it together behind the scenes. I wasn't around for that. Okay, but when did DA hit the street? March? This is brand new. The timing, my goodness, the timing of this. Anyway, I could go on and on, but you get where I'm going with that.
Absolutely. The main thing that I think separates this from everything else out there is, and I don't know exactly who deserves all the credit. Let's just say, Michael and Jeremy and Jason, and I'm sure I'm missing a lot of people, but that group of people that sat down a year ago or whenever they did, and they said, let's eliminate the number one thing that people really don't like about home-based business. Let's eliminate that, but not just eliminate it. Let's actually have a solution with coaches that like what they're doing, and these coaches are effective. That right there is such a game changer, because I know some people have tried it before, and if you don't have if you don't really have like the A team, it just doesn't really work. And these guys, they did it. They put it together. They continue to put it together. They continue to take a new person that is has produced some results out there in their own marketing, and then they basically inoculate them with such incredible training that Jeremy's done. And now all of a sudden, you've got just like so many advantages over everything else. And if you do the Pepsi challenge, you take a look at this versus anything else out there. I mean, John, you and I, we've got the experience, but sometimes, maybe in a couple of years, maybe in 5-10 years, we'd like to be, our children are about the same age, and maybe we'd like to take a little more time off but still have a thriving business. Well, we can do that here because we can rely on those coaches to take care of our business for us. And we'll gladly, pay them 20% to do so. If we would have had that 15 years ago, I know you and I would be retired, guaranteed.
Well, but here's the thing, Dave. Both you and I are coaches here. So what does that tell you? That tells you that we obviously love this work, right? It doesn't feel like work to me. I mean, interacting with people who are just getting on the path that you and I have been on for, all this time, it changed my life. And if I could be just a footnote in somebody's success story, of the next chapter of their life, man, what an honor. What an honor to do that. I mean, why did I write the books? Why did I show up in the first place? Look, Dave, you and I and everybody else on this call, we can go anywhere and make money. You can do anything and make money. Anything will work, right? You can get a job. You could, I suppose you could panhandle on the street, right? You make money doing that. You could, let's see, you could start your own business. You could be an author like me. You could publish products. You could be a business owner. Dave's been a business owner in terms of starting companies and stuff. There's a lot of work involved in that. There's a reason why we've chosen this industry. And again, I'll look back to my early days, my youth, and growing up in very extreme examples of lack and limitation and poverty consciousness. I'm here to counter that. I'm here to expand prosperity consciousness for as many people as I can, and we're better to do that than in the the home business and online marketing and entrepreneurship arena, right? So I don't know. Maybe I would retire, but you know what, Dave? Here's the thing. I think for everybody is that when you meet people who do the work that they do, whether they've made money at it or not, because they love their work. Let's say that Dave and I both, neither of us need to earn money anymore. We got investments, and you know what? Our bills are paid, whatever. We don't have to earn money, right? It's just about capital gains. Now, what are we going to do with our time? We going to sit around and twiddle our thumbs? We going to jump around on trampolines in Dave's living room? No, we've grown up. You know what we're going to do? We're going to work. We're going to work. We're going to do, and what is work, by the way? Some people, especially online, Dave, I think a lot of people have invalidated the idea of work and relegated it to just another four-letter word, because it is a four-letter word. But I'll tell you, work is on-purpose action. That's the cleanest definition of work that I've ever found. On-purpose activity. So what would be the opposite? Activity with no purpose? or no activity, right? Well, both of those sound crappy to me. I'd rather do like something on purpose. I'm an on-purpose guy, so let's do some action. That's called work, right? In fact, Henry Ford said there is no joy unless one knows that they've accomplished something, right? There is joy in work, Henry Ford, right? So I look at it like that. It's not so much, here's the evolution, guys and gals. It's not so much about what can I get, I need to pay my bills, and the early goals when we first get started are very, like, right in your face. Like, you see right in your face, there's the need to accomplish something financially, right? You got to make sales, you got to make money, you got to do business. Okay, fine. But then it starts to grow beyond that. The vision starts to go beyond that into how can I serve, right? What are we really doing here? Why did I not just sign up in here? I signed up to make money, of course, but why am I still here? There's something bigger than just a job, so to speak, right? Which obviously this isn't a job. Everybody's an independent, distributor, but you get the point. It's a job that we're doing. It's on-purpose action. It's work, right? Why do we choose this work? Why do we stick around, right? And for some people, Dave, like you mentioned, they're not, people on the phone. They're not coaches. They're not counselors. That's fine. They like to drive traffic. Okay, fine. Back when we got started, there was, you had to wear every hat. Every hat was yours. And now we get this leverage. Bob Proctor, who you and I have both studied, we've both been at events with Bob Proctor and, on stage with him and all this, and doing conferences. And one of the things that Proctor told us some years ago was that you want to develop your strengths and manage your weaknesses. And so I thought about that for a while. I mean, that sounds like a cool saying, right, Dave? I mean, yeah, develop your strengths and manage your weaknesses. That's catchy, man. But what does it really mean? Well, I started to think about that, like, how do I manage my weaknesses? Assuming that I can recognize that I have some, right, which which I do, by the way. I've not arrived. Okay, so how do I manage my weaknesses? And the answer came, after some thought, well, I manage my weaknesses with the strengths of others. That's how we get leverage. In fact, that's the only way that I've seen to get leverage in terms of running a business is, because the CEO is not the secretary. The secretary is not the sales manager, right? So each person has a different post, and that's how we get leverage. We manage our weaknesses with the strengths of others. And is that not exactly what is happening here? Anyone who's been through step 13 has seen that. Has seen the evidence of that right here inside Digital Altitude. You want to wear every hat? I'll tell you what, Dave. I've got my own companies that I run. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and there's no guarantee of success, right? I look at all the different things I've done in my time, and I've noticed that the things that have been the most profitable are the ones where I get to man one post, and that post can be marketer, right? Or in this case, my role here with the DA is, well, I've got two, senior coach as well as, the call master or head janitor or whatever they want to. I don't have a title here yet, but something, right? We run these calls, okay? And but I don't have the legal post. That's not my post. I don't know. Somebody else has that. They're good at that, by the way. I'm not good at that. I'm definitely not the accounting post. I don't know nothing about that. I don't want to know nothing about that. So to your point, your original point, right? People can come here and literally never talk on the phone if they don't want to, right? Hopefully they shoot some videos, they do some, whatever kind of marketing they're doing. Hopefully they get out into the marketplace and, make themselves known and build their trust and credibility, which I believe, and especially in the digital age, I think is so imperative that we build trust and credibility in the marketplace. And you could do that without talking one-on-one with people, right? Grab yourself an iPhone and, start rolling tape. But the idea here is that you don't have to be all things to all people. So that's what's coming up for me as you say that, brother. What do you think about that?
Well, John, I think you and I are kind of like middle-aged dinosaurs in the industry, and we've seen the tough stuff. We've done it. We actually figured it out, and we had success. And I look at you as an absolute legend. I mean, any guy that can knock out 7 figures a year from home is, someone that I think you need to take notice, and, you need to read his book and figure out what he did, why he did it, and how it's working, because it's very remarkable. It's very hard to do without having a boss, looking over your shoulder, and, you're stuck to a cell phone and text messages 24/7. So, I mean, that's amazing. But I keep going back in my mind to, and this is just so cool that we're talking, because I really haven't thought that much about what we used to do 15 years ago. But if someone would have kind of like pulled us aside over by the elevator at the VN and said, hey guys, there's this guy, Michael Force, and I can't tell you when he's going to do it, but I can only tell you he's going to do it. He's going to build a model that's similar to this, because I know you guys like the leverage of high tier, and I know you guys like to help people, but he's going to make it where, can you imagine where you have a person interested, and they come on board, they're going to check it out for 2 weeks, and they're going to get what's called a welcome coach. And this welcome coach is going to take care of, don't worry, John. They'll go ahead and reach out to that person for you, and they'll go ahead and email them and call them, and put them on your calendar, John. Imagine that, your calendar back in 2001, 2002. And then after that, you're going to have what's called a startup coach. And this person's going to take them through the preliminary 6 steps, showing them what's going on. And then, after they buy the first product, they're going to have what's called a scale-up coach, a business coach. This person's going to be responsible for really showing them the business. And then after that, we're going to show them a traffic coach, John. Because, John, I know you're busy. I don't want you to have to train people on traffic. John, just do what you want to do. We'll have a traffic coach. John, imagine that. It sounds like a fairy tale. Doesn't it sound like so foreign when you go back into 2001?
Well, yeah. I mean, we we were running around like chickens without heads, except you. Somehow you did it while lounging in hammocks all day, or on your trampoline. But you know what? I just had a call with a student just before we started here tonight on the Black Diamond. Robert down in Phoenix, right down in the old stomping ground there, who just made his first rise sale. He's brand new in the business, right? He just made his first rise sale. And you know what? It was I wasn't involved with it. I didn't do a three-way call. I didn't Q&A with him about how to get leads or any of that. It's like the system did it. Beautiful, right? I couldn't imagine that. Dave, how much was required of people back in the days. And I don't want to keep harping on how hard we had it. Look at us, grandpas over here, and we had to walk uphill to school and through the snow and fight polar bears off of our notebook, uphill both ways, no, okay. But I could just tell you that if you saw what we've seen over the past 15 plus years, I think you'd grasp the huge advantage that we have now. So, yeah, Dave, I'm with you. And you know what? I think I'm just looking at the chat roll as you're talking here. We've got a lot of people who are brand new here. And this is, I see people right now. You know what we're going to do? We're going to open this up for Q&A in a minute. But why don't you finish your thought?
Hey, John, before we do that, we do that, I want to throw one question at you. Okay. So if you had a brand new person that just joined you today, and they said, John, I need to get to 6 figures a year. What do I need to do? What's your response?
Do exactly what I did. And this is what, in fact, Ty Coughlin, who is another old-timer who, from the old days, who was on the Black Diamond a few weeks ago, asked me that same question. I said, well, here's what I do. I'd show up in the company. I'd say, well, who are the top people or the top guy or the top gal, right? Show me the example of what's the best, okay? Great. Then I want to know how are they positioned with their business, like how have they structured their business, and then I want to know what kind of marketing are they doing. So those are the 3 questions I would ask. Now, all those questions can and are answered as you go through the steps. So it's made very easy for me as we go through the steps, right, in terms of like being a coach or being an affiliate. It's very easy for anyone who's an affiliate here to say, go through the steps and listen to your coach, listen very closely, go through each step in its entirety, do the worksheets, really grasp this, because there's not just 6 figures for you on the table here. There's millions on the table here, as evidenced by our results. This is not an experiment. We know this works, and you just happen to have found it at a beautiful time when it has evolved into this thing called digital altitude. Top Tier Direct Sales is alive and well. It changed my life. That's exactly what I would tell people to do, is cling to these steps as if your life depended on it, just like I did back in '02, Dave. Because you know, I mean, you know my story. You've probably heard it a million times. My job was literally killing me. I ended up in the hospital at 32 years old with a stress-induced condition. You know, the doctor was telling my wife, who I had just married a couple months prior, that your husband will be dead in 5 years if he keeps going like this, working 80 hours a week, getting his pay cut 3 times a year. Miserable
Right.
stuff, right? So you gotta want it like your life depends on it. So that's what I would do. And then I would look back a year, like I came into this industry with a goal of $20,000 a month, which I was never able to do with the job, never able to do in my franchise, never able to do in multi-level marketing, never able to do, period. Came in here with a goal of $20,000 a month, reached that goal in 3 months, finished my first year, net profit $480,000. Way beyond my expectations, almost double what I was wanting to make. I was wanting to make a quarter, I made almost a half, right? So what's that, right? So when we do it with our head down and like with the blinders on, and we just do it to the max, we'll find that we can go way faster than we may have expected, because a lot of those expectations, Dave, as you know, are based on what we did yesterday. And yesterday sets no precedent for what we can expect tomorrow, although we tend to drag yesterday into today to see what we're going to create tomorrow, which is folly, of course, but that's the human condition. So to sort of hit the reset button, to get really focused on what top people are doing. Listen right from the horse's mouth. Here's Michael Force, right? Here's a guy who's made it. He's done tremendous work, okay, and been tremendously productive. Listen closely, not just to the words, but who's saying them, and start modeling what these people are doing. That's exactly what I would tell people to do, Dave.
So, John, what about, I just got to reverse this on you a little bit. If you want to kind of like turn off the faucet and slow down the success to almost the bare minimum, what should that person do if they say, you know what, I just want to test it out, John. Show me how it doesn't work. What should I do so it doesn't work?
Let's see.
I'll answer that if you don't want to.
I'm having a stretch on this one. Well, I'm going to go back to principle, because I base my answers on principle, and I would have to say live in a state of indecision. In other words, waffle back and forth, drift from thing to thing, chase every shiny object, and dilute yourself by attempting to dabble and to experiment with lots of different things. That's what I would say is a pretty good way to be mediocre. What do you think? What's your answer?
I would say that's an excellent way. I think I can add some spice to that. I would
Okay.
say, another thing is, guys, there's a great lineup of new fall TV shows. I mean, come on. Monday night, what are you doing on here? I mean, there's plenty of things to watch. They're bringing back MacGyver. I mean, come on. MacGyver?
Wow.
Really? Yeah, they're bringing back MacGyver. So, you could show up here and invest in your future, or, you got things to watch. Those morning calls, there's other things to be doing in the morning, Spotify's got some great music. Just get on there. Hey, that Vegas event, have you seen ticket prices lately, John? They're ridiculous. So forget about, traveling. And why would you want to, stay at a nice resort with a bunch of future friends? I mean, 15 years ago, John, we never knew each other. I mean, we could have just let that pass by, so we didn't have to meet if we didn't,
Right.
actually show up. So, that. And then, hey, John, that trip to Fiji, that wasn't that fun, was it? So, guys, obviously I'm joking. The point is, get to every single event, whether that event is digital every morning, or if that event is, once a week like we're doing here, or if that event is every time we're in Vegas or wherever we're at doing an event like that. If you get to those events, the friendships that we formed are priceless. They last a lifetime, as we're showing you right now. And we learn from each other. John and I are a systematic reason that we've knocked out some great numbers, because we set up each other. We've had a blast with each other. We learn from each other, and you can't put a price tag on it. So it's like not even a question. If you're going to do this business, do the business. Treat it the same way you would treat this if you were going to, to spend $300,000, $400,000 to be a doctor. Because if you were to invest that in this, I guarantee you'll make more money, because I have 7 doctors in my family, and I smoke them all in income, and John knows that for a fact.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I haven't met any doctor who makes the kind of money that you can make here. And we need doctors, of course. Doctors good. We need doctors. Not everybody can be, an online business millionaire or whatever. But for that matter, we need people, operating the counter at Starbucks and at the Apple Store and everything else. But that's not your path, right? If you say it's not your path. And so we've all been drawn here for a reason. And to go after that reason, to pursue that purpose, like I was talking about before as I was quoting Albert Gray, that is why you're here. And to do that with such integrity that there's no part of you that's diminished in that you're undiluted and you're intense. Intense. That's how I operate, as you know, Dave. Intense focus. But that's the only way that I've known how to win. It's like Napoleon Hill talked about in Think and Grow Rich, that these successful people he studied, they're like virtually obsessed with success. Okay. Balance in life, yeah, that's good. I'm still learning about that. But I tell you, I am obsessed with success. Not just for myself, but for any people I can touch, during my time here. So it's a big mission. It's big. And you know what, Dave, I just want to honor you. I mean, there's no mistake that, here we both are again. And all these years later, I think we're on the right path, my friend. And I think there's a lot of people who have just joined that path as well. And so why don't we hear from a couple of them? What do you think? We'll open the lines, take a couple of questions. What do you think of that?
Absolutely. Before we do that, I want to say a quick shout out to my very dear friend, Jason Howell, because the reason I'm here is I got a phone call in April, and of all places in the world, calls me up and I said, there's a little bit of a delay. I said, where are you at? And he goes, I'm in Nepal. I'm like, okay, Jason. He's always doing something super cool. He's in some village. He's like building, I don't know what he's building, but he's building something cool, like a school or something with his wonderful wife, Tanya. And it's like, he calls me up and I said, what's going on? He goes, I need to ask your advice on something. So it was a side business question when we talked. And then after we're done, I said, what are you up to? And he told me, and he said, you should really consider coming over here and doing some coaching. And here I am. So Jason, I had no idea how much fun this was going to be. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and you're always my lifeguard. And John, you know the inside joke about that. Jason saved my life in Fiji whenever I was getting a little rip curl out there. 6 in the morning, Jason saw me. Everyone thought I was joking because I joke around a lot, but I was actually like waiting for help. He's the only one that came out and saved me. So he is my brother for life. Jason, I love you. Thank you. Back to you, John.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, you know what, Jason, if you're listening, Jason's my bro. In fact, he's back and forth from Phoenix to Salt Lake, and he typically stays here at the house, but he's in Salt Lake. He was here just last night with his beautiful wife, Tanya, as well. Everybody, you'll get to meet Jason and Tanya live in Vegas, of course. Dave, thank you. Thank you again for all you shared. I love you, man. You're awesome. I can't wait to see you in person in Vegas. We get to hear each other on these calls and see each other on webinars and all this, but my goodness, it's been a little while. So I'm looking forward to seeing you, my friend. Thanks for all you do.
I appreciate everything you do. Give Shannon my best. You guys have been just so wonderful for the industry over the years. And, John, thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me out.
Awesome. Hey, everybody, we'll see you next time on another Black Diamond call. Again, last day to get Sherpa tickets at half price. And I will see everybody, of course, tomorrow morning being Tuesday, on our wake-up call. Make it a great day, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.